Who are the best picks in round number 3? We did this yesterday for round number 2. We talked about how Bijan Robinson can win you a league in round 2 in fantasy football 2023. Like, the best pick in 2023 second round is Bijan. Walker right there. Go watch that video if you missed it. It's an absolute gem. Now we're talking round 3. Who wins you a league single-handedly from round number 3? We're talking about it all day today on the show, taking your phone calls, answering your questions. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Smitty. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show, and as usual, we'll be taking your phone calls. We'll be doing it live like we always do, and we'll be talking round 3 players today. I'll answer some of your questions if they fall outside the realm of round 3, but we do want to focus hardcore. We can talk Dynasty, too, if you want to call in and talk Dynasty. We're talking hardcore fantasy football, round 3, win your league. Who's going to dominate for you from that third round spot? We're doing it live. Dial in. Short phone calls only right now because your boy's going to be in rant mode. So if someone has something they want to ask briefly, I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to drop you off the phone call. And then after I'm done ranking and sorting all of this and putting on screen who my number 1 overall and my number 2, narrowing this down to 2, then I'll open the phone lines to the panel style phone call conversation. So if you got a quick one, you can dial on in. You probably know the number, I assume. Let me put it on screen for you.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
So there's a couple players I want to get out of the way, not because they're not worthy of being talked about, not because they're not worthy of winning you a league, not because you can't. First in the building, by the way, today was Ron Navy, followed by Michael K. CPA, who's always in here bright and early. We've got Lunchbox, Belichick yourself, the Bruce, Kilpatrick, Golf, Bud Smoker, the Ryan, Peanut Butter, Hod. What's up, Tristan?
Hey, Smitty, I had a quick question, a little unrelated to what you're doing, but I thought I'd ask it if you'd allow.
Go ahead, sir.
So I made a trade in the Dynasty League. I traded Josh Jacobs in a 24-second for Aaron Rodgers and the 2023 1.10. How do you feel about that?
So I'm glad this falls in the realm of potential third-round player material because I think Jacobs is probably a player that falls in the third round to most people, and he's not a guy on my list. You know, and the thing is, like, Jacobs, I don't know, I haven't got to your trade yet. I'm not saying, so you traded Jacobs and say it, give it to me one more time. You traded Jacobs and what?
Jacobs in a 24-second for Aaron Rodgers and the 2023 1.10.
Jacobs a 24-second.
Yes.
Okay. For what? For A-Rod?
Aaron Rodgers and the 1.10 this year.
And it's Superflex?
Yes, sir. Or actually, it's sorry, I just left work. I'm in my yes sir, no sir mode. It's a 2 QB league.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I don't mind that. You can call and saying yes, sir. It's fine. Look,
Yeah.
if you need a quarterback badly, this can make some sense. Like, this is not. I get it. I get that A-Rod's got maybe the 1 year. I get that Jacobs is, coming off a NFL leading the league in rushing type of season. 24-second doesn't tickle my fancy one single bit. I could care less. The 1.10, I like it. I mean, especially in Superflex, you could get a guy like Sean Tucker or Quentin Johnston to fall. You know, Zay Flowers could be there at 1.10. So that pick actually looks very different later. Right now, it's easy to overlook it. I think if you're in the money, if you can win Not that Jacobs has a whole lot of long-term value anyway, so I don't know that it would be the biggest mistake either if you end up miscalculating this. But if you can win right now and you have no quarterbacks, I don't mind this at all. I know a lot of people are going to think Jacobs is very solid and amazing for the future, and I don't know. I don't care about Jacobs in Dynasty. Not to mention, is he going to be disgruntled in his current situation, facing 8-man front after 8-man front after 8-man front, and not getting what he wants out of this season. But number two, so he's going to get abused. Number two, it's hard to repeat what he did last year, especially when you kind of come from out of nowhere. We all know he's talented, but he did come from out of nowhere to be the league's top running back on the ground. So I don't see a repetitive situation here. And number three, this team's not going to live in the red zone anymore. Not that Derek Carr was the most amazing quarterback in the world, but when you throw and feed 14 touchdowns to your star field-stretching wide receiver, Devontae Adams, guess what happens? The ball moves down the field. You matriculate the football into the red zone, into the goal line situations. That's not going to happen. Jimmy G can't do that. So Jacobs is going to struggle mightily. And so I'm okay with this, especially if you land that 1.10 pick and you get somebody you think special. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Tristan, call back during the panel show, okay?
Thanks, Smitty.
Yeah, later. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say they don't like that.
Activated.
I didn't mean to hit that, but it's warranted. It's warranted. Dynasty mode activated. Back on track, Tristan. Okay? Jacobs isn't in this list. I mean, it's a good topic. I'm glad he brought it up because someone's going to say, where's Jacobs? And this is redraft right here. This is redraft. I don't mind Jacobs in round 3. I'm not taking him. I'm not going to tell anybody to take a lap, but I certainly don't value him in my top 6, players of impact. He's not on here. I don't have him on here. And it's not like an oversight. I don't have him on here for a reason. To get a couple players out of the way, I like Nick Chubb in the 3rd round more than I've ever liked Nick Chubb anywhere else, because I'm not a huge Nick Chubb owner. Like, I'm not a guy that thinks that Nick Chubb is going to be there for you for 17 games. And you can come at me and say he had such an amazing start to the season, and you'd be 100% right. And I'm not going to disagree with you. In fact, I'm going to go, yeah, exactly. But Smitty, Nick Chubb was a monster at the beginning of the 2022 season. Correct. So if you don't love him in round 3, I like him in round 3. That's why he's on the list, Bob. Like, coming from somebody that told you last year, be careful of him, and he did drop off at the end of the year, but he had a phenomenal, better start of the season than I could have ever thought of, cooking up or whatever. Here's his game log. His game log is insane. Can we all just take a moment, even if you're like a little bit worried about Nick Chubb this year like I am, can we all take a moment and give this man a standing ovation for the beginning of this season? Look at the numbers in the touchdown and yardage departments through week 8 before the bye week. Weeks 1 through 8. I mean, you know what I'm saying? 141 and 0 TDs, 141 yards in week 1. 87 and 3 touchdowns in week number 2. 113 and 1 TD in week number 3. 118 and 1 TD in week number 4. 134 and 2 TDs in week number 5. 56 and 0 in week number 6. 91 and 1 touchdown in week number 7. And 101 and 2 touchdowns in week number 8. Now, there's one problem, though. Who was quarterbacking during this time frame? Because there's a little man named Deshaun Watson that came into the picture. Let me put his game log up. And I'm not saying that this 100% means that that this is going to correlate and make or break Chubb's season, but we have to acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge that all of this happened when the team was leaning upon the run because Watson wasn't in the lineup yet. Christian Watson. Good Lord, I'm so sorry, bro. Take a lap. Christian Watson. Deshaun Watson Week number 13. Week number 13. What happened to Nick Chubb in week number 13? 80. Look at 1 touchdown in week 12, 0 touchdowns in week 11, 1 touchdown in week 10. Look at this. 3, 1, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. These are touchdowns. 1, 0, 1. Week 13. This is not like dumb luck or something. This is a correlation that I'm telling you has some rhyme or reason as to why it's occurring here. This is not some crazy stat. Week 13. Week 13. Do you notice anything? This man doesn't have one single touchdown with Deshaun Watson under center. Not one. Not one single rushing touchdown. The exact week Deshaun Watson returns to football. Week 13. Week 13. Very curious. Very, very curious. And so I'm not so quick to just be like, oh, that's dumb luck. They'll be able to tear it up. Look for Nick Chubb to just pick up where he started last year, and don't worry about the momentum and the lack of momentum here. There's reason to be concerned. There's also reason to be concerned that this team isn't going to be having this moment of cohesiveness that everybody thinks is going to be there in 2023 that wasn't present in 2022 because they're going to have a whole offseason together and Deshaun Watson's going to get cooking. I just don't know that Browns will be better this year. I love Chubb's value, says Cop Watch. And I don't blame anyone, and that's why he's on the list as a third rounder. That's the other thing, too. Similar to Breece Hall, another guy on this list, Chubb and Breece Hall are here in the third round. If they were first rounders, we'd have more concern with Breece Hall. We'll get to Breece Hall in a minute. There'd be concern for the recovery. And what if there's a setback? What if he has a little bit of a slow weeks 1, 2, 3, 4? Guess what? He's in round 3. Baked in. Nick Chubb, what if maybe there is no cohesiveness? Maybe things can't get back on track as fast as we want them to, or Watson struggles a little bit and the offense isn't really molding yet, because it's still, you can't just expect it to be firing on all cylinders when it didn't finish firing on all cylinders. But he's in the third round, so the value's kind of baked in. I will say that I don't like him more than around the 6 overall player if you're going to identify 6 or 7 third round players that are maybe win a league potential. There's win a league potential in Nick Chubb, but I also feel like this guy's knee, the knee injury he suffered in college, is going to lead to a quick demise at some point, because he had the most devastating knee injury in the history of college football, or knee injuries I've ever seen. Your knee bends like this. His knee bent to a 90-degree angle the other way in college. Ripped everything in the knee except for maybe, and we don't even know because social media was not huge back then. Information was not plentiful. You couldn't figure out things like that as easily. No one was reporting on everything you wanted. Like, if you were like, if you want to say, hey, did Nick Chubb tear his ACL? And you Google that, or let's say Breece Hall. Did Breece Hall tear meniscus, or what did he tear exactly? You could find out immediately just by Googling it or asking Ziggy, did Nick Chubb ever tear his ACL? You guys see that? You guys, oh my God, this is on the fly. Ziggy, did Nick Chubb tear his ACL?
From sportscasting.com. Nick Chubb played his college football at the University of Georgia, where he was a 4-year standout.
That's improv as well. He didn't answer the question. He doesn't have the information. Ziggy, did Nick Chubb ever tear his ACL?
From essentiallysports.com. He terrorized the Bengals defense.
He terrorized. Ziggy, has Nick Chubb ever suffered a torn ACL?
From ad.com. He said the tornado struck another relative.
He's confused. He's giving me, Ziggy, off. He's giving me a different answer every single time. You know why? Because we don't have any information back then. When no one knows anything. You literally, if you or I back during Nick Chubb's torn ACL were to try and Google what happened, we don't even know. We don't know what his injury even entailed. But if you say, Ziggy, did Breece Hall tear his ACL?
From spotahome.com. It has an amazing terrace, cute decor, and an AC unit to fight off the summer
Okay,
heat.
never mind. Ziggy, off. You're making me look bad. But we can do so. Ziggy, shh. We can do so now in today's world. We can look up something and know everything about it. My whole point being is we don't know if Nick Chubb did suffer torn ACL. And why do I say that? Why does it matter so many years later? Because if your knee, the injury that he had, which was, again, a totally 90-degree opposite direction tear, that will lead to a deterioration in the knee quicker than anything in the world. This is why, guys like Todd Gurley having the ACL tear, having a pretty, gruesome situation in the meniscus area. This guy had his knee fall off a cliff like that. Like Nick Chubb is probably going to hit a wall, look like he's running in mud, have arthritic knees just happen very, very quickly. And so there's a concern to say, hey, this guy at some point is going to leave you holding the bag. And, there's just concern about it for me. And while I still look at last year's stats and I say to myself, like, good Lord, look at this start to the season. Every single one of those touchdown games was under the command of a team not led by Deshaun Watson. And so Watson's a little bit of a concern because of the vulturing of touchdowns, or even if Watson didn't he only ran for one touchdown last year. He's still going to vulture the attempts, vulture the situation, command a lot of that goal line stuff. And for me, I just don't think Chubb is worthy of this, anything higher than 6. He's on the list, though. The respect was given to him. Joseph Burrow, let me take Joe Burrow off. Not because he's not deserving, not because Joe Burrow won't be the guy I want right here at the end of the day. And we're not going to take him off the list, but we're going to acknowledge that he's falling into round 4 a lot of the time. He's in round 4 a lot of the time now. Therefore, I don't want to condone him being the best pick in round 3 because he's going to be in the round 4 video. And let me spoil it for you. He's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick in round 4. Win a league. We've got Kenneth Walker and Bijan in my round 2 video. We've got all these guys. We're still sorting it out for my round 3 video. Round 4, this guy's going to be leading the way as the number 1 overall pick in round 4 fantasy football 2023. But because he can sometimes be required to be taken in the third round territory, he's going to stay on the screen. We'll put him in the corner with some asterisks next to his name so we know that, look, this guy can charge your team from the third round, and you can win a league with Joe Burrow in the third round, especially if you have back-to-back picks, something like that. Give me Joe Burrow. And the concern, Cop Watch's concern is all the carries and workload. The thing is, bro, his knee will fall off without any sort of warning sign. And so every time you own Nick Chubb, you're taking a risk that could be the drop-off here because it won't be a slow, gradual drop-off. It'll be an immediate hit a wall like it will with Derrick Henry this season. So we got Breece Hall. We got Etienne. We got Olave. We're down to a 4-man race. Who's the best pick in round 3? Fantasy Football 2023. This is your round 4 guy, okay? Love him. He's there out of respect with asterisks next to his name because we want it to be known we take him in 3. He can still win a league in 3. This is a monster right here. Absolutely get burrowed. People are getting burrowed left and right, and people are going to remember it.
Get burrowed.
However, we're going to leave him right here, and we're going to say to ourselves, let's narrow this down to 3. Who is the odd man out? Doesn't mean we don't like him. Doesn't mean they can't win a league. Doesn't mean I don't want to own him in every single draft. But this guy, Stevenson, we're going to remove him and put him in 4th place. I love him. Everybody loves him. Will New England go after Bijan? Will New England draft another running back potentially? Do they want another blue chip running back? Do they not want another blue chip running back? Is Stevenson still in the doghouse from his fumbling issues and as well as his bad decision-making and pitching the football in that Raider game that lost Bill Belichick a chance of trying to win in overtime? Is he in the doghouse? Because he ended kind of in a way he was in the doghouse. There's a lot of reasons to be a little bit concerned, and I love him. He's ranking number 4 in terms of win a league value in round 3. No disrespect's getting tossed to his name. And in fact, we'll keep him on the list just in the 4 spot. Okay. Etienne, I absolutely love. We're going to put him in 3rd place because Etienne has a potential risk of running back by committee. It seems like the team is not wanting to throw the football to him. If you came to me and said, Smitty, I'm from the future, okay? And we entered Brucey's room, okay? This is July 2023. Let me change the calendar. Bruce. There he is. Bruce. They're gonna throw to Travis Etienne in 2023, pal. Draft him. Look, if I had a time machine, I could go into the future. I could come back and tell you 65, 70 receptions is in the cards, on the docket for Etienne. Guess what Etienne is? An absolute win-a-league, tied for Hall and Olave, third-round pick in 2023. 100%. 100%. No hesitation. No equivocation. No stuttering at all whatsoever coming out of my mouth when Etienne's being drafted at 3.1. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth and what I'm throwing down here? If you could guarantee me that this dude is catching 65, let's call it 65 plus receptions, I'm walking straight to the bank. I'm taking my little napkin or my team written on a piece of paper. I'm sticking it up against the glass saying I want to advance on my winnings. Can I give you this IOU? I've got Travis Etienne in round 3. And inside the bank, they'd say, this guy, come on over and take a look at this. Kind of like, you know, the old joke that when grandma takes a, you know what, in the toilet and she says, hey, come on, take a look at this before I flush it. It's very similar. It's very similar. They're going to be calling everybody over, all the tellers, the bankers. You're going to be pressing up this roster on a napkin or a piece of paper up against the glass. It's going to show Etienne, your third round pick, and they're literally going to wave everybody over. Let this guy into the back. Swaggy says, I do not trust Etienne. Coach at all. That's what we're saying, Swaggy. This is why we aren't doing these said things. We're not doing these said things, Swaggy, because of this. Follow it. Appreciate you, Swaggy. Appreciate you. But this is why he's not ranking number 1 overall, Swaggy. If he was getting the receptions, is my point, we'd be here talking about him as the number 1 league winner. This guy's a top 5 running back in waiting if he's given 65, 70 receptions. They didn't throw to him. I don't know if they're going to. And he's still a third round absolute gem. So just imagine for a second that this dude's getting a massive, this would be in your draft, third round, absolute full load drop.
Initiate full load drop.
But for now, you are number 4, Travis Etienne. And I'm reluctant and saddened to put you number 4. That leaves us with Chris Olave and Breece Hall, your two-headed race, 2 monsters. Who's the league winner in round 3 out of these 2 monsters right here? Is it this guy, Chris Olave, that is an absolute monster in the making? Top 5 wide receiver loading. Is it Breece Hall, who is, in my opinion, the number 1, number 2, number 3 dynasty running back? But what do we make of 2023? This is such a tough one. I know you're thinking I'm just immediately going to go Breece Hall. There's potentials, weeks 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, slow start. There's a potential for, a little bit of a setback or something like that. Maybe he's utilized a little slower than we want in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4. This guy, to me, I'm not saying I'm making the decision yet. I haven't decided yet. I really haven't. Sometimes I don't plan anything on my show. I'm very torn on this one because this guy could be a top 5 wide receiver. A tie. A tie. I mean, if I had to make a decision, probably going to put Hall above Olave if I had to. But why can't it be a tie? Why can't we live in a world where 2 people are first and everybody else is last? If you're not first, you're last. Well, guess what? These guys tied for first. Therefore, you can be not last when you're not first. These guys are both first. I absolutely love both of them. You win a league either way. So you can get mad all you want that I didn't make a decision. I didn't choose somebody, but I'm choosing both. I'm choosing winning. I'm choosing winning over anything else. Give me both of them. Absolute monsters. Region says, Smitty, can Etienne command 85 plus targets? Go ahead. For no offense, pal. I don't mean this in a negative way, but go rewatch about, I don't know, 20 minutes into the show, 19 minutes into the show into 26, because I just went over that. It's a problem. It's a problem, but we're hopeful that Etienne can get volume. We just have no idea. That's why he's ranking there. Hall has a grade A receiver to split with. Hall has a grade A receiver to split with. Well, good thing they don't play the same position, JCIM. Good thing Breece Hall's getting carries between the tackles, pal. These 2 guys are absolute third-round gems. In order, it's probably Hall slightly, but I'm giving them a tie. Olave and Hall both league win. They're both league winners. They're both bringing home the trophy for you in round 3 in 2023 fantasy football. Joe Burrow's on this list out of respect. People are getting burrowed left and right, and people are going to remember it.
Get burrowed.
Because this dude is going to do what we're saying right now for people in round 4. And if you have to take him in 3, I'll be frank with you. Burrow probably ranks above these 2 guys if he had to live in this round. But he doesn't live in this round. He's going to live in round 4 in the round 4 video. I give you, finally, in totality, my triple stamp, a double stamp, ranking and approval, number 1 tie for the 2023 third round Monsters Win a League player list is Olave, Breece Hall, followed by Etienne and Stevenson in that order. Let's go. Now we take your phone calls, panel it up, dial in, jump on the panel. Tristan, call back.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
This is it right here. This is where leagues are won. This is where leagues are won. And if you can couple my round 2 video with my round 3 video, what do you think I'm going to say about your team? What do you think I'm going to say if you dial into this show and you say, Smitty, I saw your round 2 video. I love it. I love it, bro. I love your round 2 video. I took Bijan in round 2. I took Olave in round 3. What do you think I'm going to say about your team? Do you think I'm going to say anything other than you literally got him?
Got him.
That's fire. You're live on the Fantasy Football Show.
Yeah, Smitty, I agree with you on Olave. Olave in round 3, total league winner. I think with Derek Carr, I mean, I don't know what we're thinking for projections for him, but I could legitimately see him being a 1,400, 1,500 yard receiver this year
If he's
with Carr
asleep.
added to the mix.
If he's sleeping
Yeah,
during
if he's
half the
asleep.
season, 1,400 yards. If he wakes, he's gonna wake up
I mean,
in
look at-
he's gonna wake up in Bruce's room and in Bruce's bedroom, and literally just be like,
Yeah, and
"Hey, Olave," just sitting right there, sleeping away, getting 1,400 yards, completely unconscious.
No, I agree. I definitely think that Olave in 3, because if you remember Devontae Adams' production in Las Vegas with Derek Carr, it was very natural as well. So there was no difference between Rodgers and Carr for Devontae.
It was 100 receptions plus. It was 14 touchdowns. It was, 1,500 plus yards. It's funny when people say Jimmy G's going to do well in Las Vegas. I can't help but, I almost do Bill the Tickler laugh. I almost can't control myself. It's like, you really think that Devontae Adams, his new caretaker, is Jimmy Garoppolo, and you think he's sniffing what Derek Carr can feed him? The nerve on Raider fans or anybody that's a Jimmy G fan to insinuate that Derek Carr was the problem when Derek Carr was handed an god-awful defense every single year. Jimmy G's about to be handed a worse situation than Derek Carr had. I'm here for it. I don't wish downfall on anybody, but I'm here for the I told you so moment because it's coming.
Yeah, I honestly think Olave, I don't know if you remember, before Cooper Kupp had his super explosive season, he was like a 4th-round pick. I see Olave kind of as a similar type in the sense that, Olave is getting priced in at a 3-4 range, but, we might look back on it after the season's over and be like, Olave was the steal of the draft, where you were like, oh, my God, I got a round 1 guy in 3 or 4.
That's why this video is here. That's why this video is here. That's why this video is here, bro. This is your winter league. These are 2 winter league players. So when it's not, we will. We will look back on this video and say, remember when? The most boring, pastime in the world is remember when. Not in this case, because we'll be talking about Chris Olave.
Yeah, and then I would say, to what degree are you concerned about? I know you said Breece Hall's ahead of schedule with his injury, but is there any concern for you taking him there? Say there's a Walker still on the board, or Mondre Stevenson, who are probably going a fair bit earlier than him, depending on what kind of league you're in.
Well,
but what round are you comfortable with him? And I know that risk's probably priced in for you.
Well, I did explain all this. Hall's right here; he's tied for first. Stevenson's down here, so I did actually address that exact thing with Stevenson. As for Walker's in the round 2 video. So, if Walker's in round 3, he's the number 1 round 3 pick you could possibly come across, because he tied Bijan practically for the win a league round 2 video. So if a round 2 league winner falls into round 3, of course I'm gonna, put them at the top of the round 3 list. But we did talk about Stevenson and Etienne and how they have the upside and ability, but they're below Olave and Hall in my mind. Not that you can't argue it. Not that tomorrow I might not feel a little different. Etienne could be a number 5 overall pick in a fantasy football draft if you could tell me with a guarantee he was catching 65, 70 receptions. And he's capable of that. I don't know that he's capable of that in this offense with this coaching staff, though. They didn't throw to him. He is one of, if not, he's at least a top 3 receiving back. At least a top 3 receiving back, skill set wise. And no one has a clue that is the case.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I like Stevenson's upside in the receiving game, especially if Zappy gets playing time. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a starter in New England all year. I'm sure you feel the same way. Stevenson, I feel like there's a lot of upside there. So I would feel comfortable probably taking Stevenson over Hall. I think, personally, that's just my take on it, because Stevenson gets a lot of bubble screens in New England right now. And I see that probably amplifying over the next season.
Clearly I'm okay with the conversation, but according to this rank, clearly I wouldn't. But he's on the top 4 of win a league 3rd round players. So he's clearly in my conversation. He's clearly in my purview. He's clearly sitting right in front of, everybody else but Etienne, Hall, and Olave. But these are the top 2 without hesitation in my mind. They're tied in my mind. And then Etienne can get into this conversation. Stevenson could too, as I alluded to earlier. Stevenson's a monster. He's got a little bit of the doghouse concern going on. He's got a little bit of the Bill drafts multiple rookies, no matter what his running back room looks like. There's a little concern about the offense. There's a little concern about everything right now going on in New England. New England's a mess. There's the quarterback rotation. There's the fact that I don't think Mac Jones is good at all. And I think Zappy's okay. Zappy will start games, but then will Zappy fall apart? So at the end of the day, Stevenson's situation could be built for him to be leaned on. And maybe the offense moves the ball effectively enough that Stevenson's not facing 8-man front every single time, but there is some concern that if they don't move the football enough, maybe Stevenson gets, bogged down. Hold on one second. That's fire. Let's go over to the 954 area code. You're live. Who am I talking to?
Yo, Smitty, what up? It's TR, a.k.a. I Think.
I think. What's up, pal? Is this your first time calling?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
this is a work number 2, so let's not save it.
Okay. What can I do for you, I think?
First, I just wanted to shout out all the beautiful people in the chat. You got some really classy individuals in the chat. They all communicate really well with each other, and with you as well. So it's pretty cool, fun group you got going on here. I just wanted to kind of chat with about the RBs. I agree with the takes that you have on all of them. They're all good, but I just want to play Angel's advocate here, right? I love Olave. I love his situation, because they got a man who can actually throw the ball. It's questionable how good he throws the ball, but he throws the ball, right? I mean, look at Devontae Adams, stats from last year. But again, playing Angel's advocate with those 3 running backs that we talked about, I want to talk about Hall right quick, because you did kind of call this last year with 1 or 2 players when they were coming off of an ACL injury. There's a typical hamstring injury that always kind of comes back because they're not used to playing on the ACL, and there's always a hamstring
compensation.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Compensation injuries. They're very, very common off ACL tears. But go ahead, I'll address it in a second. But keep going.
Does that hurt Hall's kind of projection in that? And because like we already know that, all right, it's going to take some time for him to come back from this ACL, and then potentially he's going to run into this hamstring injury that could also hold him out for a couple of weeks. Right now, again, I know he's a league winner in the sense that all that might happen in the beginning of the league, the weeks, right? And then at the end of the weeks, he'll probably recover and actually be a league winner. But how do we manage for that potential situation where he has that hamstring injury? Now we could talk about the others, or do you want to address them?
Yeah, let's go one at a time, and then we'll come back to you on your second question if you've got time, unless you're on a time crunch. But so they're all good questions, and I get asked this probably 5 times a day. So and it's not your fault that you haven't heard the response. So let me give it to you, because a lot of people ask it. They clearly feel the same way you do. There's concern. Big difference between, let's start off with Breece Hall in round 3 versus, let's say, Barkley at number 5 overall the year he came back from his ACL tear. So right then and there, you have a risk baked in that is by far, 3-4 times greater impact in terms of like baking in the risk, not accounting for a slow start, accounting for a setback. Hall in round 3, it has all of that inside that value. So when people came out and said, I'm drafting Barkley number 5, I don't care. And the phrase we heard a lot of the time was something along these lines. You guys remember, I'm sure. We're not drafting Barkley for week 1. And then it was like week 2 or 3 came along and people said, we didn't. And a lot of analysts said this. They dug their heels in to protect themselves because they gave a lot of bad advice to go get Barkley coming off his ACL tear. We didn't. Calm down, everybody. Everybody gather around. Everybody's panicking, rioting. We didn't draft Barkley for weeks 1 through 4. We drafted him for near week 8. Then week 8 came. Week 10 came. Then you had people coming out going, we didn't draft Barkley for the first 3 quarters of the season. It never stopped. It was constant. The problem with Barkley, the problem with J.K. Dobbins, the problem with any running back that has come back and had some sort of recidivism or some sort of compensation injury in your right hamstring injuries, and I talk about this all the time, hamstring injuries follow ACL tears that next year like clockwork if the running back isn't ready. And if Breece Hall, and I don't want to hear you can't compare Adrian Peterson to anybody else, he's metahuman and all that. You're correct if you're going to say that or take that stance in terms of expecting a 2,000-yard season out of Breece Hall. You can't. That is an anomaly in what Adrian Peterson did. But when you just blanket, when you say in a blanket fashion that you can't compare Adrian Peterson's recovery to anybody's, you can. You can look at one thing and say Adrian Peterson was 100% physically ready to come back. And everything that we're being told, Breece Hall is 100% ahead of schedule. He looks fantastic. And the next prediction I have is that he looks like he didn't even tear his ACL. You heard none of those things about JK. You heard the exact opposite. He might start on PUP. He's not ready. You heard nothing of those similar things with Barkley. Instead, we heard he might cut right before week 1. Like, the fact that people didn't see this writing on the wall, the fact that people think this is the same thing, just ACL injuries, blanket statement, you never trust an ACL tear. How old is the player? How recovered is the player? All those things must be collected, analyzed, looked at, valued, weighed out. And if Breece Hall suffers a setback, if Breece Hall's not ready for week number 1, I will be telling you to avoid him. Unless his ADP falls to like a 5th or 6th round territory, then I'm going to draft him similar to Javonte, a little bit higher. Because where are we taking Javonte? Where are we taking Javonte? Round 7? Round 8? Like, some will take him at 5 or 6 off the news he could be ready for week 1, but I think us more astute people are like, hey, I still want it. We've heard PUP is in the cards for him, and now we hear maybe not. Let's wait. He's a round 7, 8 guy. We're not taking Javonte's knee injury was a little more severe. It wasn't as clean, but you ask a great question, but the answer is very simple. Readiness. How old are you? What's the likelihood of having a setback in week 1 or even being fully ready? So we'll have to reassess and relook at Hall's progression. But everything we're seeing right now, this guy is 100% a different place than any of these other guys that have failed with a torn ACL. And if I was just some blind, approach to this, right? If I was just biased and I was like all about Javonte and Hall, my big predictions last year, right? If I was just about digging my heels in, wouldn't I be saying the same thing about Javonte that I'm saying about Breece Hall? In fact, I get that question more than anything. Why are you so high on Breece Hall and you're not on Javonte? They both are coming off ACL tears. Because there's actual logic involved in this that I break down all the time. It's just everybody can't watch every video every second I do, so I end up having to repeat this quite a bit. But there's a big difference in Breece Hall's recovery as it stands right now, which will have to be reassessed at every landmark, point in his recovery process.
Yeah, it's a good take. I love your side of the take that, he will be a monster. And, again, I was just kind of, making conversation, especially with the fact that you had called, last year, the whole, hamstring injury and, with some of those other individuals, the ACL coming back. So I appreciate, the information there. As far as Etienne is concerned, I was always a little skeptical about him because he just seemed to always play a little slower than what he wanted to. And maybe that just was because of his first year, right? He came off of the injury the first year. And so his second year around was really his first year around. And he just seemed a little slower, right? He had his big pops and, whatnot. But what I also kind of seemed and found interesting with they was using that other kid. I forgot his name. His name is slipping the top of my damn tongue right now. But I remember just watching almost every game, and a pop-off came from him and not Etienne because Etienne maybe fumbled the ball. His timing just wasn't there, right? Now, with the fact that they're bringing in, the Jags are bringing in Dearness Johnson, and, he's kind of like a passing back, right? I mean, he was kind of buried in the depth chart on the Cleveland. But, those games that he did play when either Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb was out, he kind of showed a little bit. He kind of popped a little bit, right? And Dearness is a little bit of a different player than Jamal Agnew, I think is the kid's name, right?
Well, hey, you have Hasty, you have Agnew, you had a lot going on there. James Robinson at the beginning of the year. So yeah, there is, and let me just, maybe I can answer your question quick and get to it quicker. We got other people on the phone. You're right. You're right in the sense that there's concern that they won't use him properly. You're right in that this is a committee mentality, Peterson. This is what we want, multiple backs. Even said that exact phrase. We want multiple backs. We want to run and deploy multiple backs, and they will. And that's why Etienne sits here at number 3 overall in my best picks in round 3 and not tied with Olave Hall. If you told me that Etienne was going to catch 65, 70 passes, bro, I would draft him in round 1. I mean, I wouldn't. I get away with what I could get away with, but I'm trying to emphasize that Travis Etienne is a first-round player if he's getting 65, 70 receptions. And the crazy part is that that's what he's designed to do. That's what the fantasy gods, that's what they created when they created this man, was a receiving monster. This is an Alvin Kamara hybrid. And when you think about, when you say slow or, whatever, I get what you're saying, but picture Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a very shifty guy. Think of Alvin Kamara in his prime. I mean, he's quick. He can get up and go. Etienne can get up and go. Like, we've seen Etienne rip off a long run. He's very, very elusive. But he's also very selective and patient with his running because he's a space navigator. That's how the space stuff started on this channel. It all kicked off. The To the Moon, Space Monster, all that got invented on the show around Kenneth Walker. And when we started talking about Kenneth Walker being a space navigator, when Kenneth Walker catches a football, and when everyone says he's not going to be a good receiving back, Kenneth Walker, I laugh. I just belly laugh, bro. Liz became a member of the YouTube exclusive membership. I just get a belly laugh, bro, when someone tells me that this guy, Kenneth Walker, can't be a top 5 overall receiving back in the National Football League. Because when he catches a football in open space or runs a football into open space, guess what this guy does? Like no other in the National Football League. He navigates to the most open part of that open space. He's a space monster, space navigating machine. Etienne's the same way. When these guys catch a football in open space, okay, they have a decision to make. They grab the ball or they're running the ball. They're patiently like Le'Veon Bell, patiently trying to assess the situation. This right here, like a magnet, I'm going to go to this open space here because there's more space and room there. Kenneth Walker, my assessment of Kenneth Walker pre-draft was this guy will be one of the best receiving backs in the National Football League in about 2 or 3 years. Laughed at, absolutely ridiculous, wasn't used in college in the receiving game for a reason, Smitty. No, we heard the same thing about Zeke Elliott. He'll never be a good receiving back. He just wasn't used in college as a receiving back. And I came out here beating a dead horse and a drum on the topic, saying Zeke Elliott will be an absolute PPR machine and monster. And he was for many, many years. Zeke, thank you for all the good years, Zeke. He's done now, but Zeke Elliott was a phenomenal receiving back. Kenneth Walker is going to grab that ball like he did in college in terms of running the ball into an open space, and he's already done pretty well. Kenneth Walker had a lot of receptions and receiving production considering what people projected. So I think he does walk into the 40 to 45, 50 reception totals, reception-wise, Kenneth Walker in 2023. Etienne,
forces with him for sure.
Yeah, the problem with Etienne is we don't know. I can't tell you with confidence, bro, that this staff's going to start throwing to him. And that's why I have him 3rd. If Etienne was guaranteed 65 receptions, we would all very quickly start drafting this man at the top of round 2, and he'd climb into round 1. He would climb into round 1 if we all were assured he was catching 65 receptions. He'd be a top 5 overall player. So the only thing I can tell you to sum this up is that, am I worried about Etienne? Yes. Am I worried about his running style or him being not the quick? No, I think that he runs like Le'Veon Bell runs or did run. He runs like Kamara runs. He runs like anybody that's a space navigator, sniffing out an open plane. Where can I squeeze into next? And then I get there. Where can I squeeze into next? Kenneth Walker's going one space at a time down the field. This guy Etienne's the same way. And if you watch Etienne run, the way he runs is amazing. You know who Etienne reminds me of and who reminds me of Etienne out of everybody in this 2023 rookie draft class? Jahmyr Gibbs and Etienne feel like the same player. Like when you watch them on film, they play very much the same. And what does that tell you about Etienne? You'd think, oh, Smitty, you're telling things about Gibbs, right? No. Me telling you that comparison's actually me trying to circle back to Etienne and say they're using him wrong. Jahmyr Gibbs is coming into the 2023 NFL draft as one of the premier pass-catching running backs over the last 5 years. And Etienne also came into his draft class as one of the premier prospects in the receiving department for RB. I venture to say out of all the receivers and running backs in Etienne's draft class, you include every single wide receiver, you include every single running back, and you rank them in terms of their receiving ability, he would be number 3 or number 4 in the entire draft class in receiving ability. Yet this offense doesn't appear yet to want to use him. Now, did they just ease him back? Because that was technically his rookie year we just witnessed. He did have a rookie year where he sat out the entire year, didn't play one single snap. Kind of his rookie year last year, sophomore year. So maybe, like Kenneth Walker, we're judging his progression too harshly. Maybe Peterson and this offense start to use Etienne more. Maybe Trevor Lawrence, the T Law Dog, maybe he starts getting more involved in deciding when to throw the football to Etienne, and he forces this progression in reception totals and being active in the passing game. Maybe it all happens. And if it does, we're here for it. And regardless, with the limitations that are in place for Etienne receiving wise, he's ranking as my 3rd biggest league winner around 3. So there's a lot of upside. Out of everybody here, the guy that has the most upside is probably Etienne, but he's being held down the most as well. Hey, I think hang out right there unless you got to jump, whatever. Hang out if you can. George from the Bay, go.
Yes, I mean, it's a good take on both these top 2 players. I think Olave is going to have a huge year with the addition of Carr, but just, the way I do my builds is I'm always going Breece Hall here because, I mean, just look at the production that he started to get once he became the starter. 17 carries, 18 carries, 20 carries, and he got hurt early in the second quarter of that game against Denver. It's like he's going to have a monster year, and I personally, when I watch film on this guy, I see the next Adrian Peterson. Like, he runs so hard. He runs with an anger. He's so dominant when he touches the ball, and when people try to tackle him, like, he's so hard to bring down. It's like this guy is going to be probably top 2, but if not number 1 running back this year. That's what I think. So, I mean, I love Olave. Don't get me wrong, but I can get a Christian Watson or a Drake London later on in the 4th or 5th round. So, in round 3, I'm going Hall.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Olave, Hall, absolute league winners. This question, I would take Olave over Eckler in a dynasty format, like 100%. Keeper league's a little different but I think still if you're keeping him 3 years, Eckler's got this 1 year left if he's lucky, in my opinion. If he's lucky, so I'm taking Olave with that extra, keeper value. We got another $4.99 hauler from That's Fire who's on the phone, multitasking, dropping super chats and Hands doing a high five. These are the descriptions of the stickers he's dropping. Appreciate you. Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't animate on that one, but I'll animate it for you. The animation's turned back on. Sometimes when we get those renewals of the or somebody drops a YouTube exclusive membership and someone's in the middle of talking, I'll mute that potentially for a minute or two, and then I forgot to unmute it, so I'll animate it for you.
To the moon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. And let's circle back. George from the Bay real quick. I agree with your take. I think Breece Hall is an absolute monster. I think the concern about his, speed of recovery and all that will be on my mind the entire offseason. I will be updating everybody in terms of my expectation level. And if we hit any roadblocks, we will certainly reassess Breece Hall. Like, we have checkpoints for Breece Hall. Every time there's a piece of news, every month, we got to look at it. If he has a setback, if he has a hamstring pull because as I think, talked about, and as I mention all the time, hamstring injuries really, 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 really are a concern for anybody coming back from an ACL tear. Even if you're ahead of schedule, they're still a concern. So if he has some kind of nagging hamstring injury, we have to kind of play it by ear. But in saying that, if let's say he has a hamstring injury, there's still a possibility he falls to round 4 because of it, because people are going to be like, oh, great, he can't even stay healthy. And then it's kind of baked in again. You know what I mean? So we got to reassess Hall at every single, checkpoint in the offseason. But for right now, and that's why Olave does tie him in this ranking of who can win you a league in round 3, because Olave doesn't have the injury concern, and because Olave did what he did with the rotation of musical chair quarterback play. And this guy was, when Winston was in the lineup, leading the NFL by a wide margin in air yards. So this guy's a field stretcher, and he's getting handed Derek Carr, who just stretched the field on a regular basis with Devontae Adams. And now Derek Carr, who's the problem in Las Vegas, everybody laughs at him like getting rid of Derek Carr and adding Jimmy G is going to solve the problem. This guy, Derek Carr, for the first time is going to get handed a top 10 defense. Top 10-ish defense. You could say a lot better than top 10. You could say just outside top 10, whatever. He's getting handed a top 10-ish defense. And we're going to see what that does for his game, his confidence, his ability to win games. And if Olave can dominate stretching the field with Winston under center and lead the league in air yards for a decent period of time, and then when he loses said quarterback, turn into a completely different wide receiver, play the sideline, play the short game, and tweak and hone in on his short game skills. I don't know what else to tell people. This is going to be one of the most polished second-year wide receivers we've ever seen. And it's because of the adversity and the changing scenarios this guy endured all year long. This guy could be a 1,400-yard wide receiver in his sleep. This guy could catch over 100 balls his sophomore year. And having Devontae Adams territory touchdowns under Derek Carr's command is certainly in the cards. So, anyway, let's go back to George from the Bay real quick. George, you got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with the Olave take. I think Olave is going to have a huge year, like I said. But if I'm going wide receiver in the first round, if I got anywhere from a top 5 pick or 6 or 7, I'm going wide receiver, because I'm not going to be taking, I'm not taking Eckler. I'm not taking Henry. I'm not taking Barkley unless he's in the second round. So my running back's going to come out of the third round. So, the 2 running backs that I'm targeting are Hall and Etienne. And if Kenneth Walker slips, obviously I'm taking Kenneth Walker. But other than that, I can get a better wide receiver in 4 or 5. And who knows, maybe even Olave does slip to 4, because, in our drafts that we do with our guys, we know our guys, so we reach for them in our drafts. But, who's saying that when we do a normal draft with our league mates that they're going to be drafting the same way we do? We don't know that.
Yeah, so addressing your take of not going wide receiver in round 1, I'm sorry, not going running back in round 1. I agree that there's some reasons to lean wide receiver because of, or Kelsey, even if you wanted to in a redraft. But in round number 1, it's, JJ, it's Jamar Chase, it's Hill, Kupp. I don't love Lamb in round 1. I like Lamb at the top of round 2. I love Lamb. But I'm not forcing him in round 1 like a lot of people are. When we get to this stage here, it's I don't have Adams in here even close. It's these are the guys I'm trying to target. And then what happens for me is once CMC's obviously in the mix here. We'll put CMC here. So CMC is really the only RB, right? That you consider when you're in this territory, at least me. Once I get past this territory, right here is Bijan for me. And I want people to try and wait for Bijan in round 2 if they can. If you could take a Tyreek Hill, a Kupp, or someone and wait for Bijan. But this is as simple as this for me. It's not about me saying I'm not taking an RB, but when I break it down and look at it, there aren't a lot of RBs in my top 12, top 10 overall. So if the right RB falls in CMC in the first quarter of the draft, then I could take CMC without blinking, without batting an eye. If I get toward the late to end of round 1, Bijan is the guy I'm leaning here. But there aren't 12 guys I love in round 1. So round 1's a tricky round for me, because if everybody gets sniped, then I don't know where I'm going with the pick, and I'm not feeling great about it. I'll take Garrett Wilson really high if I have to, just to make sure I pick a player that I truly believe in. But then you're minimizing some of the value, the upside, by taking him way too early. But for me, it's not like I avoid a position ever in an entire round. But to your point, logically, I'm gonna run into running back a whole lot less, I think, is the better way to approach it. I wouldn't say I'm not taking an RB. I'm not, just because you don't know what can happen. But in round 2, I think you've got a lot of upside in Walker. So I think he should be considered your round 2 running back potential grab if you do end up falling into it. I think we talked about Bijan falling in round 2. So Bijan's a fantastic round 2 running back. Hall at the turn. So specifically in round 3, but also at the bottom. Etienne, I think, is in the same boat. He's a turn player that you want in round 3, but if you're forced to make a decision at the end of round 2, it's possible. But I think Etienne needs to live in 3 more so. Hall could live at the bottom of 2. So, it depends, bro. Like Olave in round 3. I love Olave in round 3 down here. I've taken him at the turn before. I've taken like Olave and Hall before, and I haven't felt bad about it at all. So, take these. I won't take a running back in this round. Take that a little bit loosely into your draft. Just be a little flexible.
Well, there's just too many question marks with like the top running backs, right? Like Derrick Henry, he's getting up there in carries. Cook, nobody really knows what's going to happen with Cook. We know that.
Yeah, those guys are all. Yeah. I would take those guys.
Eckler, like I'm staying away from him. The only 2 running backs that I would even consider in the first round, which depends on where I'm picking, would be Taylor or McCaffrey. Like those are the only 2 guys.
Yeah, that's fire. What else you got? You guys can hang tight on the line.
I guess I really agree with you on Etienne that he's explosive, but I'm kind of concerned. I don't know. I kind of want to chat this too. Would you guys rank Stevenson or Etienne ahead of one another? Because personally, I'd rank Stevenson ahead of him just because of his usage in the Jags offense thus far, where I think New England's going to lean on Stevenson a lot more. That's why I would lean Stevenson.
Yeah,
but I will agree. Etienne's really explosive. It's just, are they going to use him, especially with the added weapon of Calvin Ridley?
So, chat, vote on that in the comments. Would you rather have Etienne or Stevenson? Stevenson over Etienne. I will say though, to be fair, is what did Stevenson look like his first year really getting used? You know what I mean? Like Stevenson's progressed as well, but if we pull up Stevenson's and you got to kind of look at that. You can't really say that this was Travis Etienne's first year. I mean second year, because it technically was his first year. So if we pull up Stevenson's rookie and sophomore year and put it on the screen here, so last year and the year prior, I think there's some reason to be like, okay, can we judge him fully? He had 5 TDs in 21. This is Stevenson's stat line. He had 5 TDs in 21. He had obviously more carries. He had a better yard per carry in 2022, but his role did progress, And if we look at Stevenson's receiving production, he went from 14 receptions in 2021 to 69. So while it's really easy to be like, well, yeah, because he was the starter, comparatively, like if we're to break this down, look at this. If we were to say, okay, he got 133 attempts compared to 210 attempts from his rookie year to his sophomore year, his first season to his second season, but this receiving total is out of proportion, 14 to 69. So, like, he should have had way more than 14 receptions comparatively with the amount of rushing attempts if we're trying to say that, he was getting the same ratio. So I think it's a little bit hard to suggest that it's going to extrapolate the same way for Etienne. That he's going to only increase by X amount. We don't really know, because you can make a huge jump once you've learned pass protection, not only in the NFL, but you've learned pass protection in your specific system. So I like the debate. I think you could easily argue Stevenson. I mean, they're both on this list and they're back to back. So it's not like you're going to get a big argument for me if you say I want Stevenson over Etienne or Etienne over Stevenson. They're neck and neck as my third and fourth win-a-league player round 3. But I think it's a little tough to assess where Etienne's value is going to go. And that's in both a cautious way and an optimistic way. Because literally Peterson's running back by committee mentality should concern you a little bit. But like I said, if you give Etienne Stevenson's receiving production, you give him 69 receptions, he's going to be a top 5 overall player. So, and Stevenson at 69 receptions is close to a top 10 overall player, and you're getting him around 3. So what I'm trying to say is both these guys are absolute monsters, and that's why they're both on my win-a-league list for players in round 3. They're there for a reason. Love both of them.
I would agree. I think the explosiveness of Etienne is it's a fair assumption that he has a higher ceiling than Ramondre, just because of his elusiveness and how fast he is. So like Ramondre's ceiling's lower, but I do wonder, just based off the stats, if it's, I know it's probably the safe and more conservative play, but I wonder if Stevenson's just a safer gamble.
Yeah, I mean, all things probably. Like if you want me to answer honestly, yeah. He's probably safer. Do I think that Etienne could surpass him if he got the volume? Yeah. But, Stevenson's also built a little more to, a little bit better to handle the grind as well. But it doesn't mean Etienne won't stay healthy. But Etienne's also had the foot issue. I mean, Stevenson's safer physically. But is Bill capable of screwing this offense up, and is Bill capable of bringing in another rookie? Is Stevenson capable of being in the doghouse if he continues to do anything in a negative way at all, coming off of a season where it felt like he got thrown into the doghouse? If you owned Stevenson last year, you guys know what I'm talking about. You own this guy. He's fumbling the ball. He was making bad decisions, and Bill was pretty pissed off at him. However, if they don't address the running back position, and I don't expect them to in a way that impacts Stevenson's outlook all that much on the surface level, I feel like Stevenson's going to rise to the top and have no problem fending off any sort of competition. But the fact that, like, some say there's zero threat, I think is not the safest way to approach it. But he'll probably escape the NFL draft, I would imagine, without any sort of huge monster threat. But the problem is, the NFL draft, the value of the running back in today's NFL draft puts running backs in a vulnerable position, and running games in a vulnerable position from a fantasy football output perspective and consistency perspective, because guys like Sean Tucker could fall to round 3 or 4. Guys like Kendre Miller could go in around day 2. Kendre Miller is a problem. Sean Tucker is a problem, both of which could fall too far in the NFL draft to rain on anyone's parade. So those are the things that I worry about. You could say the same thing about Etienne, though. Could the Jaguars, who said we want to bring in multiple backs, could they draft a Kendre Miller and he be a problem? Yeah. So like, we really don't. The NFL draft is a grab bag of surprises, and someone's parade's going to get rained on.
How much does game script play into you guys' outlook on players?
I mean, if you can predict the game script, then dramatically. So
like, if I don't see the Patriots being ahead in a lot of games this season. So I think that the workload.
Yeah,
I think the point I would make
that's my problem with. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The regime in New England is changing too. So Stevenson's production can change too, because he doesn't have the two clowns, Judge and Patricia, anymore, throwing 60 pup bubble screens to him. So I think Smitty could be right in the sense that with Bill O'Brien coming in, does that offense change? Does Stevenson still see the same production? It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Because at least with Etienne, you can know that he has another year in the same system.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you would think that they would still use him the same roughly, but you don't know. You really don't know. That's why I said, could Bill screw this entire offense up? Maybe. And Mac Jones, I trust Mac Jones very little. And so if Mac Jones is in that lineup, and Zappy, I'm not saying I trust Zappy. Yeah, guys, I'll be doing I'll be doing a dynasty version of this for sure. Zappy's better than Mac in my opinion, but Mac Jones and Zappy are very, very pedestrian. I think if Bill was smart, if the Patriots were smart, they would be dropping an offer sheet on the lap of Lamar Jackson. And maybe Lamar Jackson, who doesn't have an agent, doesn't have like a marketing team or any kind of hype team or whatever, nothing. Maybe Lamar Jackson kind of floated this whole, hey, me and Odell are 100% best friends. We got bunk beds. We're doing karate in the garage, like Denny. Maybe all this was Lamar Jackson's final attempt to say, if any of you want me, you better do it now and not after the NFL draft. And maybe someone like Bill Belichick that doesn't have a top 10 overall pick says, you know what? What are we doing with 14 anyway? Not that you can't land that pick. I'd draft a monster at that 14 pick, but they might be looking at this if they are interested in Lamar, saying, let's just do it now. Let's do it now. Let's offer the 2024 first rounder. Happens to be 14 overall. It's a really high pick, but at the same time, what's 2024 and 2025 going to be? Could they be 17 overall and 16 overall? So let's go ahead and make this offer sheet. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying Lamar might be trying to play this game the best way he can, and it wouldn't shock me if that was part of his reasoning in doing what he did the way he did it, to see if he could get it. I mean, that's his attempt, it's his attempt to say, if anybody wants me, final call, because I did promise Odell Beckham Jr. that I'd probably be a Raven unless something crazy happened, unless Bill Belichick or somebody moves the ends of the earth and tries to figure out a way to get me on roster. So my point being is I don't know that Bill's going that direction. The crazy part is, and this could just be Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, just not wanting to answer the question and be the bad guy. But when he was asked if this was an option, Lamar Jackson, he said it's up to Bill. It's up to Bill. And so for anybody to say it's not going to happen, I don't think that that's accurate. I think it certainly could happen. I think the Patriots and the Colts are the two front runners if something crazy was to happen before the NFL draft. The Colts probably less likely because the Colts have this number 4 overall pick and they wouldn't dare get rid of that pick. And especially, until later on, because they don't know, what if Anthony Richardson falls to 4? They would be sick to their stomach if they made a move and he fell and the Cardinals stayed at 3 and drafted a defensive player. So the Colts are really out. They're an option after the draft. We'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, Lamar is probably back in Baltimore. At the end of the day, New England's not going to be, my whole point was New England. New England's not going to be some amazing offense, and they're going to be last in the division. And part of it's going to be the rotation at quarterback they have, and part of that is going to create some inconsistency in Stevenson's game potentially. But maybe Stevenson gets so much guaranteed volume, he's still safer than Etienne. They're 3-4 here. It's not like I'm down on either one. It's just hard to really assess who's got more upside and who's got more risk, given their situations both have red flags and upside, points.
How many touchdowns for Olave this year?
10 plus. What? Yeah, I mean, it could be a 14, it could be 12, it could be, I think he runs for a couple, and I think he pulls in over 9, and he runs at least for a couple, so you're talking at least, I would say 12. If I had to throw a number out and be within 1 or 2 on either side, I'd say 12.
I like Etienne's production over Stevenson. There's so many question marks around Stevenson. The point that I wanted to make about Stevenson earlier was, can he truly handle the load? I mean, I remember that Chicago Bears game. I needed 8 damn points just to get to win the game, and Stevenson came up short. And why? And you can't predict injury, right? We're not in the injury predictive, business. But, at the same time, it's like, can he really hold up to what we expecting from him? And not just from him per se, but from the Patriots offense altogether, right? They take the air, they can't run the ball because they can't then throw the ball, and they can't stay ahead in the games. And, it's like the defense kind of is a little sketchy nowadays. Bill is Bill, right? But how many times and how long can we say that, right? Even Kraft himself is maybe considering, at least the reports say they potentially getting rid of Bill, So, it's like there's so many question marks around Stevenson that honestly I'm not the type of individual who's pulling the trigger or even looking to consider pulling the trigger around 3 for Stevenson. Maybe round 4, top round 4. And, he obviously won't make it there because, everybody's, as high as we all are, or you guys are all on him. But, for me, it's like there's just so many question marks. You kind of, for me, I want to get a running back who is in a good offense that, can, get ahead in points, and third, fourth quarter, they just running the rock. You know what I mean? Not a question quarterback, not a question defense, not a question altogether offensive scheme to even say that they're going to either throw the ball or give the ball to Stevenson. And then you also still got the fact that Pierre Strong did, punchline, did come up strong a little last year too when he did play the game.
To address your Stevenson at the end of the year stuff, when we look at Stevenson's receiving production and rushing production in the final 3 weeks, he did crap the bed pretty hardcore. He had that 172-yard 1 TD game in week 15. And this is week 18 at the bottom, 17, 16, 15. So in that week 15 game where he had 172, I believe I have this right. Let me just see. 172, he had... receiving at -4 yards that week. Yeah, so I have it lined up right. So 172 in week 15, -4 yards that week. Since his week, I don't know, what was this? Let's see, that's 15, 14, 13, 12. Since week 12, he hadn't done much through the air. So to have 28 yards, 9 yards, 3 yards, -4 yards, 2 yards, 24 yards, that was literally back to back to back to back. He didn't finish strong in the receiving department. And then if you look at his last 3 weeks rushing, 30, 42, 54, no touchdowns. He really did crap the bed in the fantasy playoffs for people. So it's not like he's walking out of 2023 with this massive momentum. He literally crapped the bed, and he also disappointed Bill multiple times, fumbling the ball. That Raider game right here in week 15 where he had 172 yards, but he had the -4 receiving, that massive mistake in Bill's mind of triggering that pitch play that caused the Raiders to walk off on a defensive touchdown instead of going to overtime. There's a lot of concern. That's when it all went downhill. Week 15, that's when that happened. Week 16 the next week. Week 17, week 18, nothing. So there's rhyme and reason to what you're saying. I'm not saying it'll necessarily translate on over. There's a reason Stevenson is in my top 4 league winner round 3 picks. There's a reason he's there. He's here. There's no hate going towards Stevenson. I have identified him as a top 4 league winner in round 3. But I just tend to lean a little more toward the guy with the momentum. And when we look at Travis Etienne's finish, we're talking about a completely different thing. Because Travis Etienne, let me pull up his game log at the end of the year. Now, it's like we can't even, let me see, hold on one second, let me pull it up. We can't even use Etienne's receiving stats though, because they just didn't throw to him. I'll just read it off right now because I won't put it on the screen because it's not worth me screenshotting it. He had 2 receptions, 3 receptions, 3 receptions, 2 receptions, 1 reception, 3. Actually, the reception part's not horrible, but 24, 29, 32. Actually, you know what? That's not. Let's put it on. It's fair enough to mention. There's at least he's getting 2, 3, 4 points fantasy-wise, PPR. So we'll screenshot that. But let's look at Etienne's final from the bye week on. From the bye week on week 11. Let's take a look at his stats, and then we can see why I like the momentum more for Travis Etienne. Etienne in week, and we're using playoff weeks, yeah, granted, But in week 20, 62 yards, 6.2 a pop, 1 touchdown. 109 yards in week 19. In week 18, in the regular season, 17 yards. That was disappointing. Had the Jaguars not made the playoffs and ended the year like that, we would have probably been thinking, wow, 17 yards, what do we make of this? The week prior, though, 108 and 1 touchdown. The week prior to that, 83 yards. The week prior to that, 103. Like, he was being utilized. And the 2 weeks prior to that, where he had 32 and 54 yards on screen there, he had 13 and 17 carries. So, Etienne, it's hard to look at the end of his season and say he didn't finish the year on fire. And he didn't finish the year completely trusted and leaned upon by his staff that says they want multiple running backs. Look at these numbers. These are phenomenal numbers, and his yards per carry are usually in the 5 to 10 yards per carry range. You know, like the 12 yards per carry on 9 totes of the rock in week 17 for 108 and a touchdown. 20 carries for 109 and 5.5. Like, this is a guy that could have 9 carries and have 100 yards. Like, he's that kind of player. I'm not saying on the regular, but this is the kind of guy that could have a 9 to 10 yard per carry, game every 4 or 5 games and continue to do that. And then at the end of the day, his average is 5+ yards per carry.
Etienne lit it up in the playoffs too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a monster.
How'd you finish? And on top of that, which team's more of a winner? The Jaguars or the Patriots?
Jags.
And what team's going to live in the red zone more?
Yeah, Jaguars.
So, that's why I have Stevenson 4 and Etienne 3. You got to go with the logic. What smells like a better touchdown potential opportunity? What situation, what environment is more curbed toward production and living near the end zone and having opportunities? And let me end it on this with Etienne. There is no player in the National Football League that I can remember, and I don't have any stats to back this up, but I'd be very curious to research it and find out. In my experience last year in my field, this is a very vague, collection of mental data here. I don't think there's I don't think there's a player that missed more dumb luck. There wasn't a player that missed more scoring opportunities or had bad luck than Etienne. He left so many touchdowns on the field in 2023 from James Robinson vulturing unfairly because he was not doing good. Everyone thought James Robinson was going to be a threat. He didn't get that early production, which was 3-4 touchdowns probably, if you want to be honest. There was about 3 or 4 touchdowns Etienne left on the table there, and it frustrated Etienne owners. He got a slow start. Okay, he got a slow start. He also would come out of the game and hasty would rip off a 60+ yard touchdown scamper. He also got goal line carry after goal line carry, sometimes 3 goal line carries in a row. And it wasn't his fault. He gets swarmed on a bad play call. He gets swarmed before he's even got a chance to grip the football 100% in his grip. And he'd get taken down behind the line of scrimmage. And you'd have people run their mouth and say Etienne's not a goal line back. I mean, he's not the traditional goal line back. But Etienne's a good space navigator. And so I have no doubt that he would have scored in different play calls. So there's no player that probably left more touchdowns, more receptions, more break-off ripped yardage for 40 or 50 yards than Travis Etienne. If Etienne had capitalized on some of that bad luck that wasn't his fault, it was just dumb luck, he would have had another 3 or 4 touchdowns, another maybe 10 receptions, and another like 100 or 200 rushing yards, because some of those were like 60-yard rips that would have been his. So I also caution people to extrapolate his data and not consider that.
Yeah, and T-Law sneaks it in a lot, from inside the 5, and they throw to Kirk or Ingram in the 5-yard line, so.
Yeah, Lamb is another one that left a lot on the field. Fire, I agree with that. But I mean, guys, the Etienne season could be loading in a major way, and the fact that some people doubt him in round 3 means he could fall sometimes to round 4. Like I'll probably, like I have Burrow in this round 3 conversation, but I put an asterisk next to his name and I moved him outside of this conversation because Burrow is falling to round 4. So he's more of a hero inside round 4's video that's going to be next. But Etienne might flirt in both of these videos because he could fall into round 4 very easily. So he might be, him and Burrow might be the leaders of the round 4 videos. So we'll have to see. I'll have to take a look at some of the ADP data, the most recent drafts. I mean, if I look at the most recent underdog drafts that I did, Travis Etienne went, and a lot of times it's going to me, like I'm the guy taking him. Travis Etienne, without even trying to cherry pick, I pulled up my the very most recent draft that I had on Underdog Fantasy, and look who went at number 37 overall, the very first pick in round 4. So, I could try and cherry pick and find him in the middle of round 4, but this is just me being honest. He was drafted at 4.1. So Etienne's 100% in the round 4 game. Just not, I think, very embedded in the middle of it, but you might get him at the back-to-backs. I mean, imagine getting Etienne as your 4th drafted player, even if it's very close to a bookend situation in round 3-4. But you're talking about, like, one of my favorite draft strategies is from the 12th pick, you're taking Garrett Wilson and Bijan, right? And then you take Burrow and Travis Etienne. Like, that's a phenomenal start, Yeah. That is a phenomenal start. And if you don't go Burrow, let's say you go a different player later at quarterback, you could go potentially even Olave if he were to fall. So you could get Bijan, you could get Garrett Wilson, you could get Olave and Etienne. That 12th pick is pretty solid. Once again, like it was last year, I'm starting to gravitate a little more toward the 12th pick again because Etienne and Olave, or Etienne and whatever. You could even say Stevenson and Etienne if you wanted to. If you love both these guys, you could go, if you wanted to, you could go Lamb and Garrett Wilson or whatever you want at the 12, 13 turn picks and come back and get Etienne and Stevenson if you want, or Breece Hall and Stevenson, or Breece Hall and Etienne. So a lot of ways to win, gentlemen.
All right, I gotta take off.
What?
I gotta take off. I'll see you later.
Okay, later, pal. Appreciate you. Let's go to Corey. Corey, I don't know if you've talked yet.
I haven't.
Oh,
so
God.
He kind of stole the argument, but
You've been waiting.
I love Hall. Stevenson, I have a little bit of reservation for because Bill drafted, Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's going to draft another running back. He likes that 1-2 punch. When Ramondre fumbles, he puts him in the doghouse. The offense isn't that good. They're in a tough division. So I really like Etienne better. You talked about how all those touchdowns that he missed getting last year, which I agree. I think he also was coming off an injury. So I think he's going to be a lot better. The offense in Jacksonville is a lot better. I think they're going to utilize him more. They're going to have more red zone chances. So hopefully they pass to him more. And that's why I'm going Etienne over Stevenson without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you at all. And I think what I said here just a minute ago, that Etienne left so much production on the field as far as touchdowns and big yardage, that the fact that the offense is going to live in the red zone way more than the Patriots, and the Patriots are such a disappointing potential situation, I can't in good conscience draft Stevenson over Etienne. Like, when push comes to shove, I want the player on the better team. I want the player on the team that's moving the chains more. I want the player on the team that's going to potentially live in the red zone. And when they're very, very close, it's an easy push for me. It's an easy way to say, give me that player. Give me Etienne. There's a risk with both of them in terms of like situation a little bit. But Etienne's just the far safer player. Far safer in terms of situation, at least. Stevenson's a great running back, though. He's a great running back. He's number 4 for a reason. This is not a knock on Stevenson. It just means he's 4th. in the league-winning category. He's 4th. He's still in the league-winning category. Like, this is not a knock on him.
No. But that's my take. But.
Yeah, what else you got, bro? Russian Collusion with a $10 hauler. Appreciate you, Russian.
To the moon.
Russian's the man. And let me read Russian Collusion's super chat. And then if Corey, since you were on hold so long, think of another question and I'll come right back to you. Russian Collusion says, Smitty, just did the best ball 7th pick and got Tyreek Hill in the 2nd round, Hall in the 3rd round, Etienne in the 4th. That's absolutely phenomenal. And as I tell you guys, when you get drafting in these Superflex leagues, the league winning or the best approach you could have is to draft that quarterback in the top 5 or 6 if you're so lucky, and then you come back and you go back to normal 1 QB mode and you take advantage of a later quarterback, later on, and you do what Collusion just did here. You grab players that live in round 1 normally in round 2. In round 3, you grab players that normally live in round 2 in 1 QB leagues, and you compile a team that at every turn you're drafting against traffic, essentially, and you have a team that you just shouldn't have. And it goes back to this whole, and it seems like it's obvious, but until you break it down, you don't realize how league winning it is. So in a Superflex, in round 1, you're taking, let's say, Burrow. So you get Burrow here. Now, right here, what I'm essentially telling you is at the end of your draft, if you were to take Burrow away, you should look like you have a team that is as good in a 1 QB draft than any other team you could possibly draft. So right here in this round, you're getting potentially a Tyreek Hill. Where does Tyreek Hill normally live? In round 1. And you got him in round 2. Okay, and in this round, Bijan falls right here. Where does Bijan normally live? Round 2, and you got him in round 3. And then right here, Olave's normally a 3rd round pick. Now you got Olave in round 4, and so on. So you end up walking out of your draft. Let's say you get Hall's normally in round 3. You're going to get Hall probably in 4 or 5. You get Watson here. You get Kyle Pitts right here. You walk out of your draft with a team. Let's pretend you don't even get that 1st rounder anymore. Tyreek Hill, Bijan, Olave, Christian Watson, Kyle Pitts. Tell me that team, if you even took away Joe Burrow, doesn't win a 1 QB league. It does win a 1 QB league. And that's your cheat sheet, your checkpoint is kind of like an eye test. You're examining your prescription. Does this look like a league winner in a 1 QB league? It does. That is how you know you dominated your Superflex draft. Now you have a team that's Superflex. You should have weaknesses at wide receiver and running back because you're stockpiling quarterbacks, right? Wrong. This right here looks like a team you couldn't even dream of drafting in a 1 QB format, and you own it in a 2 QB format. Look at this squad. Burrow, Hill, Bijan, Olave, Watson, Pitts. You can't dream of having that in a 1 QB league, but you got away with it because you drafted against traffic. That's how you absolutely smash a Superflex draft. And you come back in, you might have to get a potential A-Rod insteed of Pitts here because people are sleeping on A-Rod and they want nothing to do with them. Or maybe you get a Sam Howell later. Big deal. You roll the dice one time at your QB2 and you try and smash it. You get Sam Howell and Brissett and you cuff the two. So you cuff Brissett and Sam Howell and you go kind of light at your QB2. But A-Rod definitely falls. Derek Carr sometimes falls. There's ways to get crafty and smash the quarterback too. But this is how you dominate a Superflex. Corey, what else you got?
Dynasty Superflex. I'm really trying to get rid of Devontae, but I can't. So what are you trying to get for him?
Good job, Collusion. Collusion, another $10 hauler, and then he took Watson in London with this next pick. Unbelievable. That's what I'm talking about. This is how you smash a Superflex league. So Javonte, you want to know what to give up to get Javonte?
No, Devontae Adams.
Oh, you're trying to get rid of Devontae Adams.
Yeah. What can I get for him? Or what would you take for him?
Bro, that is so tough. No one's going to want him.
Do I wait till during the year when a team thinks they can win it and try to trade him then?
Maybe you wait. Waiting might be the best option, but the best way to get out of a player that you can't get rid of is to trade across position. That's rule number 1, bro. Trade across position and take a hit at the position that you're trying to fill with them. Like, you're probably looking for a wide receiver, right? It's naturally what you do. You're getting rid of a wide receiver.
Well, I'm in that. I am deep at wide receiver.
Okay, so who's your quarterback?
Trey Lance and Deshaun Watson.
Okay, so I would go after, Fields. I'd go after Burrow. I know you're not going to get this as a super flex, but I'm saying, like, these are targets that I have, and maybe you can trade Watson. You trade Watson and Adams for Burrow or Fields. And while that feels like you're giving up a lot, you're unfortunately you can't use Adams 1-for-1 to get what you want. So you use him as an accessory, window dressing, accoutrement, gravy, icing on the cake. Like, try and get yourself into a top 5 overall pick. That's certainly possible if you add in the combination of the two. If you're going to go outside of that realm of upgrading at QB, I would go after a potential doubted Etienne. I would go after a potential injured Breece Hall. I would go after a potential 1.2 pick, and you might have to add something with that, maybe a couple seconds. Maybe you got to add, in order to get what you want with this, let's say it's the 1.2 or something, you got to give up a 25 first. As long as you feel like it's going to be a late pick. Across position to an RB. Etienne would be a fantastic one, I think. But you could go after, if you don't have a good tight end, you could go after Kyle Pitts. He's still an absolute monster in the making, in my opinion.
And I've got the 1.09 draft pick.
Okay, so 1.9 and Adams maybe lands you the 1.3 or 1.2 if you confuse the guy and he's having a bad day. He's sitting in the You what?
I've tried.
Yeah, he's sitting in the elevator. He checks his messages. He's having a really bad day and he just wants a change. He wants something to look forward to. He punches the button and then boom, 1.2. Probably not likely, but 1.9. So Olave, like, you're not getting Adams upgraded into Olave, but you throw in a 1.9, you might. You're not going to probably get Watson straight up for Adams, but you throw in the 1.9, you might. Or let's say you want to keep the 1.9, you throw in 2 seconds. You throw in 2 second rounders and you upgrade Adams into Watson. Kyle Pitts, like I said, there's so many ways, but the thing about it is you're probably having to add something in order to dilute the risk that Adams holds all by himself. Because, bro, if I come to you and I say take Adams, your first response is, in your mind, you're going to say, the psychology behind this is, I don't know if he's going to be able to do this for very long. But if you start saying, but you also get the 1.9, now all of a sudden you've diluted the risk, and now he has more to lean on. It's not just about Adams anymore. It's like, yeah, Adams has got some upside because he's not the only thing I'm counting on here. Adams could do it for another couple years. You start convincing yourself. So that gives you a little bit more firepower to get one player, versus Adams for one player.
I've been kind of wanting that 1.9 for Charbonnet, but
I don't blame you. Look, let me be very, very careful in saying this. In case Charbonnet falls there, would I trade Adams for Charbonnet straight up? Yes, I would take Charbonnet in a heartbeat over Adams. So if this 1.9 ends up being Charbonnet, do not trade it, because I'd take Charbonnet straight up over Adams. So if you really believe you're going to get Charbonnet here, the problem with Charbonnet at 1.9 though is if he lands in a great spot and we're all expecting him to be a monster, he's not falling to 1.9. So it's kind of like the catch-22.
So what's the most you would give for Purdy since I have Lance, or do you not even do that?
I mean, in a Superflex is smart, but I mean, you could argue that in order to secure your quarterback situation, maybe you need to give up like the 1.9 for that. But I don't know that I would. I don't really love the Niner quarterback situation. I kind of feel like it's a mess, man. You know, we don't even know for sure if one of those guys will be the starter 2 years from now. I know everyone wants to pretend they feel like it's going to happen, but we don't know. So I'm not huge on that situation, but if you're in a bind and you can't get quarterback, you know, safety or any sort of, you know, lock on that.
Like I told the guy that's got Purdy, I said his stock isn't going up anytime soon, and we got to see what happens in the draft. And then what if Lance plays good?
What are his wide receivers? What are his wide receivers?
My receivers?
The guy that has Purdy.
He's one of the worst teams in the league for receivers.
Well, who's he have? Give me his team.
Mooney. He's got Cooper Kupp, but then he's got like Mechie and there's not much there. I can't remember.
Do you think he values Adams well over Cooper Kupp, or no?
Well, he's got Cooper Kupp and he's got Stafford too.
Because I would give up something here to swap Adams and Kupp in a heartbeat. I think Kupp's got at least 2 years left, and that gets you Purdy's.
He offered me, which I turned down. He offered me Purdy and Dalvin Cook for Adams and the 109, and I said no.
Yeah, I don't know that I love that because I don't think Dalvin Cook's even secured even a 2023 role. Like, he could be, but we don't know. Like, if he got traded to Buffalo, he could have a decent year, but I think Cook is, a lot of people consider Cook cooked, you know? So I don't know that I don't think he made a mistake there, but if you could turn Adams into Kupp and Purdy, now we're talking, bro. Now we're talking, because the bottom line is this. I think Cooper Kupp, if Adams had Carr or Aaron Rodgers, him and Kupp would both survive for 2 more years and be elite. You know, and people in Dynasty would overlook Adams. People in Dynasty will continue to overlook Kupp. But if you can swap these two and get Purdy and somehow give up something, I'm not saying I wouldn't do 1.9 plus Adams for Purdy and Kupp. I would do that. And he's got to, if you can win now, you secure your quarterback room. You get Cooper Kupp, who's a massive upgrade over Adams. They both have about the same amount of time left. And Adams is in a horrible situation. Not that Kupp's in the best situation, but I think Stafford's a little better than people give him credit for the next 1 or 2 years. And even if he's not, Cooper Kupp's amazing. So I would potentially look to this in a Superflex.
I think I would try the 2.9.
Yeah, I would do this.
I mean, he's Purdy. He's got Mahomes and Stafford and another quarterback. So, but
yeah, let's go. Let's wrap this up here. That's fire. You got one final thought? Thank you for the super chats, by the way.
Yeah, just to wrap up the thoughts, I think with this guy, it sounds like Lance is the problem with the team. But I mean, I believe in Watson in his QB room, so I wouldn't really trade Deshaun Watson if I'm him. I'd try and figure out how to do it outside of that.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson. I know you like the Browns. I'm not saying Deshaun Watson can't have a bounce back year or do well, but I just want to see it before I start buying into it, because we didn't really get a sense that it's for sure turning around for him. You know, like what would it? And maybe I'm misremembering how he finished. Let me pull up his game log. But until Watson,
No, he went 3 and 3 on the record, and then he had 7 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a little over 1,000 yards. So nothing like spectacular, but I mean he was average.
yeah, I think it's very fair to be like, okay, let's take a look. His touchdown production was actually pretty solid the final couple games. So I mean, he's got little momentum. We when we look at this and we say, okay, he's the yardage wasn't there at all except for that last game, but 230 and 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs, 169 and 3 TDs. So there's some momentum, but very, very little. It's tough to really assess it. And so for me,
they have improved their receiving core too.
Yeah, they have, but I'm just in a wait and see mode. It's not that I'm totally against anybody else going down this road, but real quickly, thank you. That's fire. Any final thoughts? 10 seconds.
Yes, that's really it. I think at some point I would enjoy a Cleveland discussion more in depth so we could go through this. But thanks for having me on, Smitty. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Have a nice night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, man. Appreciate the super chats. Russian Collusion, appreciate your super chats. Corey, final 10 seconds, and I'm going to go to D Philly for about a minute. Corey?
Okay, are you going to be doing a 4th round 1-2 or not?
Absolutely. What do I look like? An a-hole? Appreciate you, Corey. Appreciate you, Corey.
Thanks for everything, Smitty.
Later. D Philly.
Bye.
D Philly, I give you a full minute, whatever you want. Go ahead. Hurry.
Okay. Well, I was going to talk to you about tonight's draft. You going to do that tonight, or is that tomorrow?
Tonight we're a go. Full go.
Okay. What time?
Probably about midnight Eastern, maybe 12:30 Eastern.
Okay. I normally draft off my phone. Is this best to be in front of my computer to do
Well,
this?
I mean, you might want to have the show on, but if you call in, you got to turn the volume down. But we will go live pretty much every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at midnight, about midnight to 12:30 Eastern, and do live drafts. We do a mock draft.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, get the show up on the computer. Turn it down if you call in. But yeah, I mean, on the phone's a little easier to draft, to be honest.
It's easier to draft on the phone?
Yeah, I'd say so. The apps are fantastic.
Okay, well,
the Sleeper app that we draft on is a little easier on the phone, and then the Underdog app is fantastic on the phone. And
so it just loads up once I click on that and accept or whatever.
So have you signed up for Underdog yet?
Yeah, I got it. I got a $200 balance. I put $100.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Gave me $100.
Yeah, anybody that wants to get ready tonight ahead of time, you'll want to click this link that I have right here that I dropped in the live chat right this very second, and you're going to want to deposit your minimum of $10. They'll match up to $100 in your first deposit on Underdog Fantasy or at Underdog Fantasy using the promo code Smitty. The link enters the promo code for you. So get on over there now. And I'm going to pin the link right now in the live chat. I just dropped it. So get signed up ahead of time because it takes about 2 minutes or whatever. And if you don't do it ahead of time, you're not going to get in because we're.
So I'm all signed up, and when do you push a button, and how do I get? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what you're going to want to do is this is how it's going to work. Okay, we're going to do a mock draft, and I'll have that on this screen right. I don't have it set up right now. But I'm going to hit a button, and it's going to be the Sleeper mock draft. Okay, that's a different app. Okay. That's the Sleeper app. I'll drop that link in the live chat. When you click it, it'll have you sign in or sign up if you've never done it. That's for the free mock draft. Then what we're going to do, bro, is I'm going to plug in my phone, and we go to the Underdog app, and you're going to go to the Underdog app. And once you're signed up using my promo code, you're in, right? You're going to swipe over to the Best Ball Superflex option, which is the final card on the carousel, and then we're all going to click it at the same time, and I'll say click the button now. We all hit the green button. We enter the same draft. Okay.
Okay.
So
it's
just
12 teams, right?
12 teams. Usually when we get in, sometimes there's 4 spots available, sometimes there's 8, so it kind of just depends on how full it's already the room already is of randoms.
And this is going to start around midnight.
Midnight, yeah. Be here at midnight. Could be 12:30 Eastern. I'll see you here.
Okay, buddy.
All right, later, pal. I'm out of here. I thank you all. I'll see you tonight for the mock drafts. On that note, I also want to thank all of my super chatters. I'll thank you after I play this right here.
Leave it on the fields.
Just in time.
Fields of dreams.
Fields like making love.
Outstanding in his fields.
Fields so good.
Fields general. My fields good. Uneven playing fields.
Battlefields tested.
Fields. Fields. He's for reals.
It's time for some revenge, Revenge tour, revenge bench tour. Revenge tour, revenge bench tour.
I want to thank That's Fire for dropping a couple Double super chats. Thank you, kind sir, to the moon. I want to thank I Think for dropping a $5 hauler. I want to thank Russian Collusion for combining on a $20 hauler on 2 separate 10s, which gives him a rain moment.
Let's go! Mashed potatoes!
Yeah, buddy. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna make it rain for Collusion because he's an absolute monster. Thank you, Collusion. Appreciate you. I want to thank everybody, my mom for having me, my dad and my mom for one night in I believe like July. You know, maybe putting on what back then was Blockbuster. Probably not, you know, any sort of Netflixing, right? It was less Blockbuster and chill. Because without them, we wouldn't have a show. So shout out to the parents for having one of those revenge tour nights, if you know what I mean. I'll see you all later tonight. Appreciate you.
Four horsemen, Jamar Chase, Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Joe Burrow, all from the 1.1 draft slot. The four horsemen ride 4 horses all at one time. Giddy up.
If you stop sending me these terrible fantasy football trade offers now, that will be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you, and I will tell the commissioner on you.
The stack above all stacks. It's time to drop the pancake emojis in the live chat.